50 tons. That is the weight of the largest Olmec colossal head, carved from a single block of basalt and somehow moved more than 90 kilometers across rivers, floodplains, and mangrove swamp. Without wheels, without draft animals, without a single iron tool. 17 of them survive, each one a portrait. Each one quarried from the same volcanic ridge in the Tuxtla Mountains, then dragged through terrain that should have made the task impossible. The standard explanation is ropes, logs, and brute labor. The standard explanation does not survive contact with the swamp. What the Olmec actually did was stranger and more sophisticated than any reconstruction we have managed to model. Start with the numbers, because the numbers are the puzzle. The basalt was quarried at Cerro Sintepex, a volcanic outcrop in the Sierra de los Tuxtlas. The heads ended up at San Lorenzo, La Venta, and Tres Zapotes, settlements built on low islands inside an active floodplain. The straight-line distance from quarry to San Lorenzo is roughly 90 kilometers. The actual route, accounting for terrain, is closer to 150. Between the ridge and the city sits the Coatzacoalcos River Basin. Braided channels, seasonal lakes, mud that swallows a footprint to the knee, no wheel, no horse, no ox, no donkey. None of them existed in the Americas at the time. No iron. The carving was done with stone tools harder than the basalt itself, and the dates are early. San Lorenzo was placing finished heads on prepared platforms by 1200 BCE. That is older than the Iliad. That is older than the first stone of the Parthenon by 7 centuries. The textbook reconstruction has always been the same. Rollers, sledges, ropes, hundreds of laborers pulling in unison. It works on a diagram. It fails in the field. Wooden rollers sink into saturated soil within meters. A sledge dragging 50 tons across mangrove root mats does not glide. It gouges, snags, stops. Experimental archaeologists have tried scaled versions. The friction numbers are punishing. To move a 50-ton block across wet clay by rope alone, you need a sustained pull force of roughly 15 tons. That means, conservatively, 1,500 coordinated haulers on dry ground. On swamp, double it. The Olmec polity at San Lorenzo, at its peak, supported perhaps 13,000 people total. You cannot spare 3,000 adults for the months such a haul would require. Not while planting maize, not while fishing the estuaries. So the brute force model breaks on demographics before it breaks on physics, which means the haul was not brute force, it was something else, and the clue is in where they chose to quarry. Cerro Sintepex is not the closest basalt to San Lorenzo. It is the closest basalt to a navigable watershed. That distinction matters. The ridge sits within walking distance of headwater streams that feed eventually into the Coatzacoalcos. The Olmec did not fight the geography. They read it. Modern survey work along the inferred transport corridor has found basalt fragments and abandoned roughed-out blocks following the river lines, not the shortest land routes. The heads were floated, not on rafts in the romantic sense. 50 tons sinks any reasonable raft, but on balsa and cypress pontoon assemblies lashed beneath the stone so the block rode partially submerged, displacing its own weight. Archaeologist Cyphers, who has excavated San Lorenzo for over 3 decades, documented exactly this kind of staging area. Ramps, sunken channels, deliberately deepened lagoons. The infrastructure was built for the cargo. The river did the lifting. Human labor did the steering. That is not primitive trial and error. That is hydraulic engineering executed in the 11th century BCE. The second clue is timing. The Coatzacoalcos floods every year between June and October, raising water levels across the basin by 2 to 3 meters. For most agricultural societies, the flood is a disaster to be endured. For the Olmec, it appears to have been the haul season. At peak flood, the swamps between the quarry watershed and San Lorenzo become a single navigable sheet of shallow water. Routes that are impassable mud in March become floatable in September. The seasonal lakes around San Lorenzo's island plateau lap directly against the basalt staging ramps Cyphers identified. You do not need to drag a 50-ton head up a slope if you can float it to the threshold and let the water recede beneath it. The flood places the stone where you want it. Gravity finishes the job. This is the inversions the brute force model misses. The Olmec did not move heads despite the swamp. They moved heads because of the swamp. The environment was not an obstacle. It was a collaborator. Reframe the achievement and a pattern emerges. The Olmec did not build a road network because they did not need one. They built a water network, modified channels, dredged lagoons, deepened approaches, that turned the entire floodplain into a logistics machine running on rainfall. The same intelligence shows up in their drainage systems at San Lorenzo. U-shaped basalt aqueduct stones, fitted without mortar, draining the plateau interior. They engineered with the hydrology, not against it. This is the philosophy worth naming. Monumental work in the ancient world did not require modern leverage. It required reading the land precisely enough to make the land do the work. A river that floods is free horsepower if you have the patience to wait for it. A cliff face is free scaffolding if you can carve into it. The Olmec mastered the first principle. 2,000 kilometers and 1,000 years away, in a desert canyon in what is now Jordan, another people would master the second, and do it on a scale no one has matched since. The heads were moved by water, by season, by a civilization that treated geography as an instrument rather than an enemy. That is the answer the swamp gives up if you stop assuming the Olmec thought like us. Next in the series, we follow that same principle into stone, the Nabateans of Petra, who did not haul their monuments to a city but carved a city into the monument itself. Same philosophy, different element. If you want to see where the Olmec logic leads, subscribe and stay with the series.